Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim to be Makabel Torah. The entire Jewish nation understood what was happening. They heard Hashem say, Anochi Hashem Lakecha, and they watched Moshe Rabbeinu ascend, and they waited. They knew that Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to go up for 40 days. Moshe Rabbeinu went up, and he remained longer than he should have. Really, he remained the 40 days, but the question is, when do you start counting the 40 days? There was a mistake in terms of counting, and somehow the Klal Yisrael assumed he should have been down already, and he wasn't. Where is he? At which point the Sultan made the world dark. And the Sultan brought a casket of Moshe Rabbeinu, an image in the sky, proclaiming the message, Vadai Meis Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu died. Certain, it's a fact. And at that point, the Erev Rav turned in panic. They wanted an intermediary. They felt that they needed something to go between them and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They decided to build this Egel Azav. Chor tried to stop them. They killed Chor, the son of Miriam. Then they turned to Aaron and they said to Aaron, build for us this Avodah Zarah. Aaron, recognizing the fact that there was little he could do other than delay, began building the Mizbeach and said, Chag Lashem Machar, tomorrow will be the day we'll bring this Avodah Zarah. At which point Hashem turns to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, the Klal Yisrael have sinned, and they've turned to Avodah Zarah. And it's very clear that Hashem was ready, willing to kill the Jewish people. And the Pasuk says, Va'ata hanichli, Hashem says to Moshe, leave me, let me go. Vayichar api bahem, and my anger will flare in them. Va'achalim, and I will destroy them. Ve'eseh oscha l'goy gadol, and from you I will rebuild the nation. Let me destroy them. Let me do what I should do. Let me go. I will kill them out, man, woman, and child. And from you I will rebuild the Jewish nation. The Gemara makes a diuk that Hashem says, let me go, as if someone's holding him back, as if someone's grabbing Kaviyach Hashem by the beged, by the cloak. And the Gemara says that is correct. That Hashem was actually opening up a Pesach. Rashi brings down the Gemara that Hashem was opening a Pesach to Moshe and telling him, Shadava Tolibo, the matter is dependent on Moshe Rabbeinu. Sheim Yispalel, if Moshe davens, Lo Yichalim, then Hashem won't destroy them, but if not, He will. Basically, Rashi is telling us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving over the fate of the Jewish nation into Moshe Rabbeinu's hands. It's up to you. If you daven, fine. If not, I'm going to destroy them. Says Hashem, let me go, and I will destroy them. If you daven, I won't, but it's up to you. At which point, Moshe Rabbeinu, picking up on the cue, davens for the Klal Yisrael. He says 3 psukim, and in the end, Hashem veinachem Hashem al rosh adiber lasos lamo. Hashem reneged. Hashem decided not to destroy the Jewish people. Okay, let's ask the obvious question: what would have been had Moshe Rabbeinu not davened? Had Moshe Rabbeinu not davened, then Hashem would have carried out His plan. Now let's put this into very clear context. Poland, before World War II, had a population of about 3.3 million Jews. After the war, there were about 300,000 Jews left. 90% of Polish Jewry were annihilated. Shtetls, towns, cities that were populated for 800 years were obliterated. Man, woman, and child. What Hashem was discussing here was not destroying 90% of Polish Jewry. Hashem was discussing destroying the totality of the Jewish nation. V'achleim means destroy them to the root, every last one. And from you, Moshe Rabbeinu, I'll rebuild. But the people who are standing there, the 3 million people who are there, I'm going to kill them all out. Unless you daven. Moshe Rabbeinu davens, saves the day, and we are here now to discuss this because of Moshe's tefillah. So let's ask the obvious questions. Question number 1 is, how can a tefillah, one tefillah, 3 psukim, be that powerful? How could it change the destiny of a nation, the course of history, because one man davens one tefillah? That's question number 1. But question number 2, I think, is far more profound. And that is that Hashem is the Shofet Mishpat. Hashem is the ultimate judge. Hashem is the ultimate arbiter of what's just, what's right, and what's proper. Hashem sat there and said, based on what the Klal Yisrael have seen, based on their reaction now, it's worthy to destroy them. They heard HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself say the words, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. They witnessed Hashem. They reached a level of nevuah. Every man, woman, and child there saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a level of clarity that the greatest Nevi'im never saw. For them to then turn to Avodah Zarah, albeit only a part of the nation, but for the rest of the nation to sit back and watch it happen, was considered so egregious that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Shofet said, it is Ro'i L'chalim, they shall be destroyed. That's mishpat, that's justice, that's right, and that's proper. Unless you beg. If you beg, then forget it. What do you mean? If it's just, if it's right, if that's what din demands, how could Moshe Rabbeinu's begging, imploring, entreating change it? If that's what's right, if that's what's proper, so how could one man's begging change din? So question number one is, how can one tefillah possibly affect this tremendous a change? Question number two is more precise, and that is that it sounds like tefillah's doing something that's not just. Because Hashem said they're worthy to destroy, Moshe Rabbeinu's pleading doesn't make them innocent. So the question is, what's pshat? And I think if we focus on how tefillah functions and what it accomplishes, we'll hopefully understand what this Rashi is telling us. And to do that, let me share with you something interesting. I remember as a little boy, many, many times having the following dream. Whenever the bad guys would surround me and I couldn't get out, I would start flapping my arms and I'd fly away. This was a repeated dream. Many times I had it, and I even remember, depending on who the bad guys were, how quickly I would flap away, but repeatedly I had this dream. Interesting. I also later found out that this type of dream, almost down to the detail, is pretty common. Many people imagine that kind of thing, and that they can flap their wings and fly. Okay, not very relevant, but it is very relevant to understand a Chazal. Chazal give us a mashal to understand tefillah. And that is as follows. When Hashem created every animal, Hashem gave each animal the ability, desire, and instinct to keep itself alive. By nature, each animal knows what type of food to eat, and by instinct, each animal knows how to seek its livelihood. And Hashem gave the instincts to each animal to keep itself alive as an individual and a species. Additionally, Hashem gave the instinct and ability to each animal to defend itself. The porcupine is a rather tasty morsel to the jackal, to the lynx, to the bobcat. But the porcupine is rarely eaten because the 25,000 barbs that line his back and tail somehow convinces the bobcat to find something else, another place to go for dinner. The skunk is also a rather tasty thing for the wild dog, but the wild dog will not eat the skunk. Why? Because it'll try once. The skunk will turn around and spray, and for the next month, the dog's sense of smell is acute. The dog hunts by its sense of smell. And for a month's time, it can't get that stench out of its fur. It avoids the skunk like the plague. The skunk is black and white. It's about as obvious as you can imagine, but it's protected. Interestingly enough, zebras are a very clear game. Lions love to eat zebra. And if you look on the Serengeti, you'll see an entire herd right there, smack in the middle of the Serengeti, hundreds of zebra. And for some reason, the lion doesn't attack. Scientists now believe they've uncovered the reason. As you know, they tend to herd together. The zebra is striped black and white. Interestingly enough, the lion is colorblind. When it sees this mass of black and white, it doesn't see black and white, it just sees dark and light. To the lion's eye, it looks like wild grass. And the fact that it moves just like grass does, it blinds the lion. You and I would see the herd of zebra right there. The lion doesn't see the herd. The lion sees what looks like grass. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the zebra a very clear defense. Each animal was given its either camouflage, its stealth, its speed, its ability to protect itself. The dove is white, no camouflage. The dove is a delicious dinner for the bobcat, for the weasel, for the lynx. And yet the dove isn't eaten. It doesn't have talons, it doesn't have a sharp beak, but it's not eaten. Not because of its stealth, not because of its fierce fighting ability, but because it has a totally different system. If the weasel tries to get close, the dove flaps its wings and disappears up into the air. It's not its speed, it's not its strength. A totally different system, it's just not there. It disappears before its enemy can even begin attacking. Chazal say that's a mushal for tefillah. Just like the Yonah only defends itself by flapping its wings, so too Yisrael only saves themselves through tefillah. Tefillah is not strength. Tefillah is not stealth. Tefillah is just not there. A totally different system. It's not through power, and it's not even through schusim. It's just not there. Disappears. And I'd like to explain to you how it functions. And the way I'd like to explain it to you is by asking a question. And that question is, how does tefillah work? Let's imagine the following. Let's imagine I daven. It could well be that davening changes me. Meaning, before I davened, I was worthy to be destroyed. But after I davened, I changed. And because I became a different person, I'm now worthy to keep alive. It might be before I davened, I wasn't worthy for a parnasa. But by davening, begging, entreating, day after day, week after week, I began to understand that Hashem really is the one who runs the world. I recognize that my parnasa really is dependent on Hashem. And because I changed, I'm a different person. When I wasn't worthy before davening, after davening I might well be worthy. So I understand how tefillah works for me. But how does davening work for another person? Let's imagine the following. Imagine a name goes up on a board, a young woman comes down with leukemia. And the kehillah is broken. 200 people crowd into the shul, davening, begging, imploring, entreats, tears running down everyone's face. A beautiful, beautiful communal effort. Here's the question. The woman is in a coma. She doesn't know that you davened. She didn't change an iota. How can your tefillah do anything? If she was worthy to die, if whatever her sins were are such that she no longer deserves to live, then she no longer deserves to live. If on the previous Rosh Hashanah was decreed that this is the last year of her life, your tefillahs are irrelevant. She didn't change. She's not aware of them. How can your tefillah work for her? And I'd like to share with you one of the ways that this works. And that's by understanding the system via which Hashem created the world and runs the world. And to explain that, let me begin with the following. Hashem created this world with immutable laws of nature. There are certain laws that govern all physicality. Heat tends to rise. Gases tend to expand. Heavy objects tend to fall. These laws operate throughout the cosmos. In every part of the world are operating laws of physicality. Now these laws are neither kind nor cruel. They're reality. If you leave a baby unattended on the changing table, Rahman al-Islan, it may well fall to the ground. You wouldn't then blame gravity, cruel, evil gravity. Gravity is a metzias, it's a reality. It's not cruel, it's not kind, it's one of the governing properties that Hashem put into the world. As Hashem created the physical world with properties, rules, laws that govern it, so too Hashem created this spiritual world with laws that govern it. One of the laws of the spiritual world is something called din. Din is demanding, din is exacting. Din says you are responsible for that which you've done. That which came out from you, you are held accountable for, and you have to answer for it. Din is just. Din is right. Din is proper. But din is very, very demanding. Let me explain to you what din means. Din means that Hashem created me. Hashem put me on the planet for my benefit. Hashem gave me very exact laws so that I should grow, so that I should become a better person, so that in the world to come for eternity, I will shine, I will enjoy Hashem's presence. Hashem created me for my good. Hashem gave me these laws for my good, and Hashem is present. In front of Hashem, I say, I don't really care. That's a D'Rabbanan, and I don't like that. I don't hold it at D'Rabbanan, and I violate it. Do you understand the audacity of that act? Try this. Go back in history, 400 or 500 years ago. Try to stand in front of a mortal king and say, Your Majesty, I just don't care about the law you've made, and I'm just going to violate it. The expression, off with your head, it would roll. Your head would roll instantly. Because you don't stand in front of the king and say the words, I don't care about your law. Yet not only do we stand in front of the king, but Hashem is the Mishaveh, the creator and maintainer of all the physicality. Hashem didn't just create the physical world, Hashem created it and maintains it. If for a moment Hashem would cease infusing energy into any particle of physicality, it would cease to exist. So what that means in plain language is Hashem created me, Hashem gave me laws for my good, Hashem is right there, but more than that, Hashem is holding me in existence. My fingers, my arms, my legs, I'm in existence because Hashem is keeping me there. My very hand that I hold with is in existence because Hashem keeps it there. And I take that very hand and I slap Hashem right in the face. Is there anything more audacious that a human being could do? Any single chait that a human being ever did would demand instant death. No delay, no tshuva, instant eradication. Right in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you violated His rules, dead. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to see din in operation, Sarah Imenu said to Avram Avinu, let us go for a din Torah. Hagar acted in an insolent manner. She became pregnant very quickly after Sarah was with Avram for many years and didn't have a child. And Sarah began getting snooty. She began getting haughty. And apparently Sarah Imenu felt that on some level Avram did not stand up for her honor. And she said to Avram Avinu, let us go in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a din Torah. Says the Medrash, because of that, she lost 28 years of her life. Why? Because granted, you might be right here, but when you subjugate yourself to din, din is so demanding, din is so exacting, that even a tzaddikis of such unparalleled proportions lost 28 years of her life. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu thought to create the world, Kaviyachol, Hashem thought to create it with the Midas Adin. But Hashem saw that the world could not exist. I used to make fun, there'd be the bar mitzvah funeral arrangement. The boy would turn bar mitzvah, and he would come down from his aliyah, he'd say one wrong line, one word of Lashon Hara, one insolent line to somebody, and it'd be death. The caterers would be doing dual affairs, the bar mitzvah meal and funeral arrangements. Life wouldn't exist. And therefore Kadosh Baruch Hu did not create the world with Midas Adin. Hashem introduced another feature. That feature is called Rachamim. Rachamim means mercy. Rachamim means there are mitigating circumstances, mitigating conditions. You have to look at the person and ask, who is he? Where is he coming from? Take the context into account. You have to understand. You have to be merachim. Din demands, Rachamim has its play, but here's the point. The world could not exist with total din, but the world cannot exist with total Rachamim either. If there was total Rachamim in the world, there'd be no Olam Haba. The only reason we have any claim in the world to come is because I did something and I'm responsible for it, so I get schusim for it. But Rachamim is total, almost anarchy. There's no responsibility, no accountability, there's no reason for the world. The world can't exist with total din, the world cannot exist with total Rachamim, but both are in play. And if you can imagine a slide rule, if you imagine here is Rachamim on this side, here is din on that side, Hashem moves towards the middle. That's somewhere in the midpoint, somewhere in the 50% range is the operating force in existence. And that's how the world works under a normal day. Some days there's more Rachamim, some days there's more din, But if you can imagine that slide rule with it moving across, that's how the world operates. There is a day, Yom Kippur, that's a day of Slicha Mechila. On that day, Hashem introduces more Rachamim. There are days that Hashem introduces more Din. But the point is, the slide rule moves. Now, if you'd like to know how Tefillah works, one of the ways that it works is it moves the slide rule. You see, when that Kehillah gathers together and they begin begging Hashem, Hashem, please have Rahmanis, what they're trying to do is move over that slide rule, move it over from Din more to Rachamim, introduce more Rachamim, and move it to 60-40, maybe 70-30. You see, the woman doesn't change. What she did doesn't change, but the system of judgment might. And if the system of judgment changes, then the diyun changes, the judgment changes, the decision changes, and she might well have been decreed to death, but moving over, introducing more Rachamim, changes the decree, and now she may live. And I believe that's how Tefillah works, at least one of the systems is how Tefillah works, and that's what Chazal are being Mitzayah. When the dove is standing there and the weasel is about to pounce, the dove doesn't turn with its fierce beak, it doesn't pull out its talons, it doesn't fight, it just flaps its wings and disappears. It's a totally different system. It's non-conventional weaponry. It just alights and it's gone. It just isn't there. And I believe that's exactly what Pshat in his Rashi is. You see, what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing was asking Hashem to introduce more Rachamim. Based on the system of din in operation at the time, the Bnei Yisrael faced Kalaya, they faced destruction. Because the system in din at the time was 50-50, whatever the measurement was. And Hashem says, according to the system right now, according to the way the world is right now, they have to be destroyed. There's no other choice. Why? Because that's what din demands. That's what din demands at this moment of time, and that's what has to happen. And what Moshe Rabbeinu asked for was introduce more Rachamim. Move that slide rule over. Introduce a little bit more Rachamim, and all of a sudden it all changes. It changes because now it's different, and changes because the system of judgment is different. And the reality is that one man's tefillah saved a nation. How it operates is because that's the way Hashem created the world. But when you hear the illustration of the power of one man's tefillah, you should say that's astonishing. Because the future of humanity, the future of history, was changed with 3 psukim, 3 short requests by one man, one time, changed reality, changed the entire future of life. And if nothing else, I think this Chazal is a tremendous illustration of the power of tefillah. Okay. I want to share with you a mashal. I find it a very compelling mashal. Imagine the following. Imagine that you're a software programmer and you hear that Apple is looking to create a new division. Their apps are being integrated all into one division, and they're looking for one individual to head up that entire division. Now for you, this is the career move of the century. If you get this position, you are made. This is unbelievable. You apply, and you do well in the first rounds of interview. You end up in front of the chief of operations, and you make a very good presentation. They're very impressed. You actually make it in front of the CEO, and you're told that you've done phenomenally well. There are only 3 candidates left, and it's explained to you that really you're the lead candidate. Of course, the decision has to be made by the board, and the date is scheduled. You're going to make your presentation in front of the board of directors of Apple. Okay? You're ecstatic. You're, wow, the opportunity of a lifetime. You have the date, you plan your flight. Normally you fly economy, cattle class, but this time you're flying first class. I got to arrive fresh. I have to arrive ready. You make your decision. I'm going to make the presentation of my lifetime. And you buy yourself a first class ticket on the plane, and you get yourself ready. You show up to the airport. You're ready to fly to Silicon Valley. As you're waiting there, you notice next to you is an old man. The old man has a heavy carry-on. And as you're sort of walking to the plane, you notice he's kind of schlepping it. And you say to yourself, should I help him or not? Should I? Come on, I've got to stay focused. This is my shtadlis, my one chance of a lifetime. And you focus on your presentation, you're reviewing your lines, how you're going to... bring this division to great heights. You board the plane, sit down in your seat, and you notice that the old man comes, and he's going to be sitting in the seat right next to you. And he's schlepping his big, heavy suitcase. You help him, not help him. I got to stay focused. Let him do it himself. He takes his heavy carry-on, puts it on board, sits down next to you, and you're focused on your laptop, type in your notes. You got your razor-focused attention right there. As the flight takes off, a few minutes later, the old man turns to you and says, "It's very interesting you're typing there. May I ask what it is?" "Well, I have a presentation to make. I'm sorry, I really don't have time to discuss because I'm very, very busy." And you sort of push him aside and you ignore him. You get off the plane and go about your business. Okay. You blew an opportunity to do chesed, but you don't think much about it. You show up at Apple's gorgeous complex. You're ushered into the large room. There sits all the esteemed titans of business in America today. And you notice in the front of the table is a familiar face. Who else but the old man who happens to be the chairman of the board. Idiot that I am. I blew the opportunity of a lifetime. Hashem was delivering me. I could have made myself a favorite son to this guy. If I helped him with a suitcase, if I had been a mensch. And you realize at that moment you blew it. Why? Because whether the chairman of the board likes you or doesn't like you is the key to whether you get that job or not. I don't care how skilled you are. I don't care how technically astute you are. If the chairman of the board looks at you as a creep, you're history. My friends, we stand in front of not Bill Gates, not Steve Jobs, not the chairman of the board. We stand in front of the creator of the heavens and the earth 3 times a day. But I want you to hear well what I'm saying to you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. But not because of anything I've done, but because I am a Ben Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And as the chairman of the board might like or not like you, Hashem doesn't have anywhere near that type of sense. Hashem loves every Jewish person to an extent that's hard to imagine. And when I stand in front of Hashem, I am a favorite son. And I can be mavakish, I can ask. And when you hear about a chazal like this, that there's a power of tefillah, a power of tefillah to change the course of history. One man, one tefillah changed the future. An entire nation was saved. And you know that I too can daven, and Hashem waits for my tefillahs, and Hashem wants to hear them, and Hashem wants my success. You should take a Musar lesson from that, and you should daven and ask and ask. And what should you ask for? You should ask for help in everything. Parnasa and learning and shalom bayis and everything imaginable. And if you have kids, then multiply that exponentially. Because then there's an untold amount of things that you have to ask for. You should ask for help in everything, including your Shemayim, including davening, including your midos, including everything. Ask and ask and ask and ask, because it works. It changes things. It's effective beyond belief. And again, if we took nothing else from this Rashi, from this Chazal, other than the fact that there's an awesome power of tefillah, it would be less than enough. But I think there's a lot more to take from it. Let me explain what I mean. Moshe Rabbeinu had Rachmanis. Moshe Rabbeinu felt bad for the Klal Yisrael. Hashem said, "It's up to you." And Moshe Rabbeinu cried to Hashem, "Please, Hashem, have Rachmanis." And because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu moved that slide rule and moved it from din more to rachamim. Well, here's the question. If Moshe Rabbeinu has rachamim, how much mercy does Hashem have? Well, if you're not sure, the Chovos HaLevavos explains to us, take the most merciful person you could ever imagine. Take a person who's so kindly, so giving, so loving, multiply that by 10,000 times, and you won't have an inkling to the love, mercy, and kindliness that Hashem has for every one of His creations. So here's the question. If Moshe Rabbeinu had asked for Rachamim, if he felt that there should be mercy, what do we need him for? Let Hashem have Rachmanas. If there's too much din in operation at the time, let Hashem move it over. What do you have to wait for Moshe Rabbeinu to be Mavakish Rachamim, for Moshe Rabbeinu to feel the pain of the Jewish nation being destroyed? Hashem should feel that pain, and Hashem should move over the slide rule himself. Who needs Moshe? And I think this question is rather eye-opening. And to answer that, let's focus on another Chazal. Chazal tell us that Ternofus Harasha, who got his nickname or his last name Harasha, not because he was a great tzaddik, no. Ternofus Harasha got his name, well deserved, because he was a Rasha. And he had many discussions with Rabbi Akiva. He was a rather powerful Caesar-type person, in charge, in power, and he did a tremendous amount of evil things for the Jewish nation. And interesting enough, though, he considered himself a bit of a philosopher soldier, and he had many conversations with Rabbi Akiva. One day, he says to Rabbi Akiva as follows: why is it that Hashem violates the Shabbos? What do you mean? What do you mean? Tell you what I mean. Doesn't Hashem make it rain? So Hashem is moving the rain from that Rishus to this Rishus. Doesn't Hashem make the winds blow on Shabbos? So he's moving the air from this Rishus to that Rishus. Why does Hashem violate Shabbos? Rabbi Akiva says to Ternofus, I see that you are Baki b'Torah Yisrael. You are very learned in the Torah of the Jews. I'll explain it to you. If one man is standing in one domain, and he passes something to another man in another domain, he moved an object from one domain to another, that's hotzah, that's carrying. But if one man is standing in a very, very large domain, as large as a city even, but it's one property, one domain, one rishus, he can move all day long back and forth. He isn't transferring from one rishus to another. He's not over hotzah. Hashem fills the entire world. Hashem is everywhere at one moment. Vis-a-vis Hashem, the rain doesn't move properties, doesn't move domains. Why? Because Hashem is there and Hashem is here. And vis-a-vis Hashem, it's not two rishuyas, it's not two domains, because Hashem is everywhere, it doesn't move domains. At which point Ternofus was answered and he left. Okay, here's the question I'd like to ask you. Why didn't Rabbi Akiva just tell Ternofus Harasha the truth? Would you like to know why God carries on Shabbos? Because He's God. For the same reason He kills people, and He does a lot of things, because He's God. That's what God does. But interesting enough, that's not what Rabbi Akiva said. The question is, why did Rabbi Akiva lie? Why did he make up the story when it's not true? I'd like to share with you, I believe the answer to this question is. In many, many places in Chazal, you'll see that Hashem wrote the Torah, created the world according to the Torah, and if it could be, Hashem binds Himself to the laws of the Torah. And if in fact it was considered hotzah, whatever that would mean, then it would seem that Hashem wouldn't do it. But in many, many places you see that when Hashem wrote the Torah, Hashem acts within the gedarim of the Torah, because the Torah is so profound and so deep, it's so much the machshavas of Hashem, that Hashem binds Himself, it could be, to the laws of the Torah. And the Medrash explains very clearly that that's what's going on here. Hashem turns to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, I have a problem. I wrote the Torah, and in the Torah it says, if you're an oved of a zara, you're chayiv misa. What the Jewish people have done is so egregious, so severe, that I have no choice but to destroy them. Din is in operation here. I wrote the Torah and I'm bound by it. Unless you introduce rachamim. You as an outsider can do that which I can't do. I'm the shofet. I'm bound by the laws that I wrote. But you can plead, you can beg, because I created this system called tefillah. I created this ability for someone else to stand outside and introduce more rachamim. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu, do that which I can't do. Change the operating system in effect, introduce more rachamim. And in fact, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. And in fact, the Jewish people survived. And if you'd like to see a profound concept, it's this concept. If it could be, man was given more power than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When Hashem created the system, Hashem gave the keys of Maisa Bereshis to Adam, and Hashem, if it could be, gave power to man beyond, whatever this means, beyond that which Hashem has. And in this case, it was up to Moshe Rabbeinu. If he didn't daven, death to the nation. If he did, they'll be saved. But as Hashem was saying, please do it, because I can't. And now here's the illustration. Imagine for a minute the following. Imagine that you're standing there, and it's the middle of February, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting. waiting for you to daven. Please daven. Don't you understand? I can't feed you. I can't give you what you need. I would love to. I desperately want to. But based on what you've done, based on where you're holding, I can't do it. Please be mavakish rachamim. Please beg for mercy, and you could change it. You could move the slide rule over. You could introduce mercy and change the decree. And it might be more severe. You might have a decree of death or pain or torture or whatever. And Hashem sits there and says, "Oy, please ask. I have no choice, but based on who you are, what you've done, I have no choice but to do that which I have to do, unless you mavakesh rachamim, unless you beg." And Hashem sits there and waits and says, "Please ask for mercy. Please change the system." And when you hear the power of tefillah, the awesome effect, and you understand that Hashem waits for it, I think it's incumbent upon any sane, rational person to ask and ask, but not ask because I'm worthy, not ask because Hashem has to in any sense do it. Ask because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mavakish Rachamim, please have mercy, please judge differently. But there's one last step. You'll say, yeah, somebody like Moshe Rabbeinu, his tefillah can change the course of humanity. His tefillah can do that. But I'm just a regular Joe. I'm a regular guy. Who says my tefillah can have anywhere near that kind of impact? Who says it has any effect? Okay, so let's deal with that question for a minute. So here's the following observation. Back, by now a good number of years ago, when Ronald Reagan was in office, he championed the concept called Star Wars. Star Wars was missile-to-missile defense. Basically, ballistic missiles could be fired by it was the Cold War back then. At any time, the USSR could fire missiles onto United States shores. So the science had now developed to the point that there were heat-seeking missiles that could be developed to create almost a total defense system, where if a ballistic missile was shot, you could shoot it down with another missile in midair. Now, it wasn't totally developed, it was theoretical, but he championed it and he applied a tremendous amount of influence on bringing about Star Wars and, in fact, making sure that the United States was safe. Okay. I'm not sure how far the United States system went. I'm not sure how advanced it is. But as you probably know, in the past little while, over 50 missiles were shot into Israel, 40 of which were intercepted in midair. What's known as the Iron Dome. Israel has a missile-to-missile defense system that shot down 40 out of 50 missiles in midair. Catches them, blows them up, and no one is injured. Now, when you read about this stuff, you should say, wow, that's astonishing. Look at those brilliant Jews. That which huge governments with billions and billions, trillions of dollars can't do, and little Israel has done, and you should feel a sense of pride, a sense of, wow, that's very impressive. And you should also feel a tremendous outrage. Do you understand that 50 missiles were shot into Israel? One bullet is considered an act of war. If a representative of a government shoots a bystander, shoots an innocent person, that's an act of war. We're not talking a bullet, we're talking shooting missiles, and we're not one or two. 50 missiles are shot right into Israel with total impunity. There's nothing to discuss. Whatever, it's just, it's like, come on. You have to understand, it's the Arab Spring, or whatever it is. It's now, I guess, the autumn, it's the fall, I don't know what we're up to. But it's okay. When you read about that, your hair should bristle. Do you understand that this is the chosen nation? This is the Am HaNivcha. These are God's people. And you have the audacity to fire missiles to innocent men, women, and children. Forget the carnage. Forget the brutality. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's land. This is God's people. And you dare to even stand on the same street corner as they? And not only that, but you act as you do? When a Jew reads about this, you should feel such a chilul Hashem. You should feel such outrage because the audacity to even think about touching a Jew is such an outrageous chilul Hashem, and the kavod Shemayim alone should cause your heart to feel tremendous pain. And the Mesilas Yesharim says that every day a Jew should daven and cry over the Chilul Hashem that we're still in Gullus. Because as long as we're in this long, bitter exile, there will be tremendous lack of Kavod Shemayim. And the word God is spoken with such derision. The Jewish nation is debased and treated with such scorn. And that should bother us and bother us. And we should daven tefillah after tefillah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu end the Gullus for so many reasons. One of which is for the Kavod HaShechina. Hashem, for your glory. And then the Mesilas Yesharim says a very interesting line. Maybe you'll say, who am I to daven that Hashem should end this Gullus, bring the kibbutz Goliath, and bring us into Israel? Who am I? He says, if you say those words, you forgot the Mishnah. The Mishnah that says, Chayav Odom, a man is obligated to say the words, Bishvili Nivra Olam. A man is obligated to know that Hashem created one man alone to teach every man the lesson that Hashem would have created an entire cosmos for one human being. And he says, if you understood the power, the impact of your tefillah, you would recognize that yes, your tefillah could change it. And when Hashem doesn't bring Mashiach, you should say to yourself, okay, there's some reason, there's some factor that Hashem has, some mitigating circumstance because of which Hashem will not do it, but it's not because of the weakness of your tefillah. What Mesilas Yesharim is telling us is that any Jew's tefillah has the power to bring Mashiach, end this long, bitter exile, bring all of us to Eretz Yisrael, change history. Little me, one tefillah can have that impact. You see, it's not just Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not just the great human beings of past years, it's you and I. And when you see the power of a tefillah, when you see that Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah alone could change the course of history, and you understand the system, you understand the way it works, it's like that Yonah, it's like that dove that doesn't fight with its talons, it doesn't have stealth, it doesn't have speed, it doesn't have strength, it just isn't there. It flaps its wings and it's gone. That's the power of tefillah. What I could avert from myself, what I could avert from my family, what I could avert from my community. Who knows what terrible tragedies my personal tefillah can change. And so much more so on the good. We all need bracha, we all need success in so many things. And if we recognize the power of tefillah again and again, I would ask, Hashem, please, not because I'm a macher, not because of any schusim, and not even because of schus Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Hashem, please have mercy, just pure rachmanas. And when you ask in that way, you have a right and should expect that it'll come about if it's for the best. Not everything we ask for is for the best. Hashem, give me $1 million. It might be good for you and it might not. And there are many times when health isn't so good for you. And there are many times when a successful parnasa is not so good for you. And there are many times when we don't understand the reason why. And many times Hashem holds things back. But I have to know that it's not because my tefillah isn't powerful enough, not because it doesn't have the effect, but because whatever the reason Hashem has not to give it, not to grant it, but I have to understand there's a power, there's an impact. When you see the power of one man's tefillah, when you understand the system, and when you understand that it can do that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't do, Kaviyachol. Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, please daven, I can't save them. According to the laws that I made and I bound myself to, they're facing destruction. Please, you change it. Hashem sits there, not again like the chairman of the board, but a loving parent waiting for us to daven. And please come forward, please ask. And our tefillahs have impact, of effect. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu grant us the wisdom and understanding to appreciate the power, impact, the effect of tefillah.